So that.
Obvious frustration.
Yeah. I've not had this discussion before.
No.
It does not annoy me. Hello everybody, I'm Anna.
And I'm Michelle.
And we're the Little Unicorns, and today we're doing the fantasy reader book tag. Originally it come from Get to Know the Romance Reader by Bree Hill, but then Ridhima? Not sure about the pronunciation, but she redid it to fit the fantasy reader.
Ah, I see.
And since the both of us has read quite a lot of fantasy, and when we got to know each other, that was our thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Since then we have evolved. Me to read more fantasy, and you tried other stuff.
I've done other things.
Yeah, but this is like sort of where we started.
Yeah.
So we thought it would be fun to do this. So yeah, we'll just get started. What is your fantasy origin story?
I was like, if I'm gonna try and relate it somewhat to my life, I'm choosing the prodigal daughter because I moved abroad and came back.
I thought it more like, where did I start with the fantasy?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just always been there. Like,
Yeah.
I can't say this is the book that made me love fantasy, because I started before I started remembering too much. Like,
I'm fairly certain mine started with Harry Potter because I was quite young at the time when I started reading those.
yeah, what were we when it came in Swedish? Like first or second grade?
Something like that.
Yeah, and that is when we started as well. But like,
so that's like 6 or 7.
yeah, but like, I had books before that
Had fantasy.
yeah.
I didn't read it. That's the thing. My
Yeah.
parents, as you know, my mother, and like anything magical is like not a thing.
Yeah, no, we did magic.
We didn't.
We did magic at our house.
We did morals in ours.
If you could be the hero of a fantasy novel, who would be the author, and what's one trope that you'd insist on being in the story?
First of all, I wouldn't want this. They never have an actual fun times in these things.
No.
There are glimpses of fun times, but anyways.
Yeah.
The author, V.E. Schwab.
Mm-hmm.
What I would like a trope, chosen family.
I went with Sarah J. Maas because I feel like it would be a good balance between the horrible and the good ending. The intensity that I enjoy, but like still half of us is not gonna die.
Fair.
And I couldn't think of a trope like this one I have to have. I could only think of things that I didn't want, like love triangle. Then shoot me instead. Not gonna do that.
No, thank you.
What is a fantasy book you've read this year that you want more people to read?
Well, I have actually read fantasy books this year, and I want more people to read. I think it's pretty popular. I gave it to you for your birthday, and it's The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune.
I've not read it yet. Haven't had the time. Same for me. I've read fantasy books, but it's still like Dresden Files. It's pretty big.
Pretty popular.
And the fourth one in An Ember in the Ashes. Also quite a big one.
Pretty big.
Those are the ones. I read The Bone Witch and I didn't really enjoy it, so I wouldn't recommend that. What is your favorite fantasy subgenre?
Well, first of all, I had to Google like what is counted as a fantasy subgenre.
Yeah.
And then I realized it's magical realism and urban fantasy.
I can't really choose one.
I read more of urban fantasy and magical realism than I read fantasy.
Yeah. I really enjoy high fantasy, but then I really enjoy urban fantasy too, and it's like, do I have to choose?
I chose 2.
Well, then I choose those 2.
Fair.
And it sort of encompasses most of the things.
Yeah.
What subgenre have you not read? No.
Yeah.
Have you not read much from?
And on this list that I found, I was like, these are subgenres.
Yeah.
It said superhero fiction. And I went, that. Although, technically, I'm currently listening to an audiobook with superheroes.
I haven't read much of it, so we'll have to fix that.
Try it now. And that's called Extraordinaries by TJ Klune.
I haven't read much of that either.
Mm.
Otherwise, I put down like surrealism. That sort
of course.
Because that's not really my thing.
That's fine.
Who is one of your auto-buy fantasy authors?
I technically don't necessarily have those. If we're counting V.E. Schwab as a fantasy writer, then yes. Otherwise, I guess Brandon Sanderson. But technically, I've only read 2 of his series, and there's like a lot of his books. So I don't know if I have one of these.
I think I would have to say Sarah J. Maas. Because, she came out with a new series and I was like, wish list.
Like, yes, please.
How do you typically find recommendations?
Booktube. I watch a lot of Booktube. I find it relaxing. Otherwise, I like to just scour the internet. By that I mean, like, a lot of the time I go in and I pick a book in like let's say Book Depository, and they always have this like, other people who has read this have also bought this, and I can scroll through that and see if that's something interesting. But otherwise, I just go into the bookstore.
Sort of the same. Like, I can watch BookTube, and I had a period where I was like, okay, but now I'm actually gonna take down these recommendations, and then I just had a list of books. And I never read them. Never bought them.
I'm not surprised.
I have you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true.
And otherwise, it's like going into the bookstore or Storytel. Like,
of course.
Other people who listen to this has also listened to this.
Those are actually pretty useful.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
Yeah.
That actually kind of works out. Not always.
No,
but
not always.
Not always, but sometimes.
An upcoming fantasy release you're excited for?
I'm terrible at this.
Yeah.
Aidan Thomas, who wrote Cemetery Boys, has a Peter Pan retelling coming out in March called Lost in the Neverwoods. And that is a fantasy. I had to go into Goodreads and be like, what is this? But it's in the fantasy genre, according to Goodreads. So I'm picking that.
Yeah. I went with Rainbow Rowell's third part of the Simon Snow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be called.
I have no idea.
I think they have set a title, but I didn't look it up. It's just part 3.
Part 3.
In my head.
We'll see if there is a cover or something that I can put here.
Yeah. What is one misconception about fantasy that you'd like to lay to rest?
That it's really complicated. Like, because I think a lot of people who decide to not go into fantasy is like, there's a lot of talk about like magic systems and the worlds and all these weird freaking names. And trust me, I get it. You hear on me, I understand. But it's not that complicated most of the time, and a lot of the time you don't have to remember that much about the worlds in particular to get the story.
No,
like it's fine.
Yeah. That it's for children.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you read fantasy like with princesses and magic and dragons?
That's...
Well, people die.
That's Disney.
Yeah, it's not for children.
Oh Jesus, no.
If someone had never read a fantasy before and asked you to recommend the first 3 books that came to mind as places to start, what would those recommendations be?
I mean, I would, if they've never read anything with fantasy before, I would say start lighter. Like, don't go straight to high epic fantasy. I'd say start in the urban fantasy section somewhere.
Yeah.
I would say, actually, I'm pointing at a book over there, by the way, that's why I'm doing that. The House by the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune has fantasy elements, but it's not the main story. So that's one. Carry On by Rainbow Rowell.
Yeah.
Because it feels like a contemporary. Or it reads like one.
Yeah.
Kind of. A middle grade called Every Heart a Doorway. Because it's short. It's like 120 pages. And it's a portal fantasy. So it's about kids that walk through a door when a door appeared and they got to go to another world. Now they're back in the real world and they're like, well, crap. So it's sort of like a boarding school thing too. So it's not like there are other worlds being discussed, but they're in our world at the time.
I thought this was really hard because it totally depends.
Yes.
Because like...
And it depends on your age too.
Yeah. Because like I was also thinking about Carry On, but like if it was my dad who asked, I'm not gonna say Carry On.
No.
Like obviously. But like one of the ones that I think would be most common that I would recommend is the Dresden Files. Because a lot of Swedes like the detective
Oh yeah, makes
sort
sense.
of books. And in the first book it is not a lot of fantasy. Like you get through like half the book before there's any magic at all. I think that would be a good place to start. Totally depends.
Completely depends,
Yeah.
But yeah, we agree on the fact that you should probably start somewhere in urban fantasy.
Yeah, and then work your way up. That was the last one.
Yes.
That was it. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give the video a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please do that. And until next time, bye.
Bye.